Today I'm going to go for a walk down to a food plot that we started to build last summer. It was going to be a quick little poor man plot, but we got in there and there was trees everywhere. I thought maybe we'd cut down a few trees. We ended up cutting down 20 some trees, and that left a lot of pretty good sized stumps. And I just didn't feel like that was going to be a good example of a poor man plot. So this is going to be the middle income man's plot because I did have to use a little bit of equipment here. And that's been one of the criteria that we've used to designate the poor man plot, is we just don't use any equipment. But since I had to stoop to bringing in equipment, we're not going to be able to call this a poor man plot. But I do want to take you down there and walk you through the process of how this whole plot location was selected, and then how we started to build this thing last summer, where we're at now with some updates, and then the plan for what I'm going to plant in there this spring. I'm about halfway down to the spot now, and we talk about it all the time, how challenging it is and how difficult it is to hunt down in the valleys. It kind of struck me when I was walking down here that this trail that I cut to get the equipment down in there to do the work may end up being where we place a tree stand. The deer are going to use this trail at least to some degree. Worst case scenario, we may have this food plot down here that's holding the deer right down here, but we may end up hunting them further up on the ridge here. We'll go through it when we get down in there, like I said, but it's the biggest problem you've got with these little valley locations like this is figuring out a way to hunt it. Wow, it's amazing how much different this looks now than when we first started this back in, it was probably May or June of last year, I'm thinking. I mean, off to my left now, it's big, wide open area. Over here, we cleaned up a bunch of stuff. There were 25 or 30 trees, I'm guessing, in here that we had to take out. Some of them were small, but some of them were pretty big trees. We basically came in here with the intention of this being a poor man plot. So we had a chainsaw, a backpack sprayer full of Roundup, and that was going to be everything that we used on this project. And as it turned out, I ended up with a tractor down in here pushing the trees off. They were too heavy for us to carry them. And then ended up with, eventually this spring, late winter, Chad Lathrop came in here with a skid steer with some kind of a tool on the front of it. I'm not sure what they call it, but he gets under the roots and he pries them up with this tool. It's real handy. He took out some pretty good sized stumps. So it's one solution that you might want to look into if you've got somebody in your area that can do this kind of work, or maybe you can even go to a cat rental store or something like that and rent this type of equipment to remove stumps. Without that, I mean, we would have had a real mess in here. Now I want to talk a little bit more about this location. I like to start these food plots in places where I already have somewhat of a natural opening to begin with. And creating these little small food plots in these locations makes the properties more huntable, but it also increases the value of the property. So when you're making improvements on land that you own, doing something like this is never going to be a bad idea. Okay, now the hard part, and that is, how do you hunt these little valley locations? This one, like I said, coming down the hill, I do have the option of hunting the ridge up above it. You're not hunting the food plot specifically, but you're hunting the deer that are more or less using this area, hoping to pick them off on the fringe in a spot where the conditions are more to your advantage. That's the trade-off that we weigh. If I do hunt this, I'm probably going to come in from the south. So then, on a wind that blows from the south to the north, it would funnel right down this valley, and I shouldn't get a whole lot of swirling. I should be able to get away with hunting out of a tree stand on the north edge of this food plot. The other option would be, of course, to bring a redneck blind in here. If you look over my shoulder here, there's a nice little clump of cedar trees that we left standing on the edge. I could put that blind right into that little clump of cedar trees, should be able to get out of it and go straight out the back, down into that ditch, and then follow the creek out. And I think I could do that even with deer in this little small food plot. That's what you've got to consider, that, because granted, you know, these small food plots, the deer will move through them a lot quicker than they will in those larger destination type feeding areas, but I can't expect to get somebody to come down in here and bump the deer off this food plot for me at the end of legal shooting time. So these small spots like this, you have to have a built-in plan for getting out of there on your own at the end of legal shooting time. Let me talk for just a real quick second about what's left to be done here. I need to till it up or smooth it up just a little bit more. And I think since I've already committed to putting equipment in here, I'm going to go ahead and bring the tiller in and till this one. It's pretty good size. It's probably almost an acre. I might make most of it clover and have one little corner of it be big and beastie, or vice versa. So we'll be back in here in another month showing you the tilling and the seeding of this little small food plot. I think last year when we first started working on this plot, I remember thinking that I didn't have enough interns in the office to get this project done right. I think I might have even said that I was going to turn it over to some of my employees and then I could just go back to the office. But it's nice to have this thing behind me because there was a lot of work that went into this one. Some of the poor man plots that we produce aren't anywhere near as labor intensive as this one. And we'll do another poor man plot this year. We're not going to skip that process. It's one that we try to do every single year. So we'll have another one of those coming up for you in the next few weeks. But in the meantime, I appreciate you joining me. And as always, we'll be right back here again next Monday for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.